Imagine you are a Roman senator. It's 216 BC. You've just received a messenger, breathless, blood-soaked, eyes wide with a look you've never seen before. And he tells you something that should be impossible. Cannae is gone. Not just lost, annihilated. 70,000 Roman soldiers, the largest army Rome has ever fielded, destroyed in a single afternoon. By one man. A Carthaginian general who crossed the Alps with war elements, survived 2 years in enemy territory, and somehow kept winning. His name was Hannibal Barca. And this is the story of how one man came closer than anyone in history to ending the Roman Empire before it had even truly begun. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most jaw-dropping conflicts in all of ancient history, the Second Punic War, fought between Rome and Carthage from 218 to 201 BC. Stick with me for the full story, because this one has everything: betrayal, genius tactics, impossible mountain crossings, catastrophic Roman defeats, and one of the greatest military comebacks in history. Let's go. To understand why the Second Punic War happened, you need to understand how the first one ended. The First Punic War, fought mostly over Sicily, lasted 23 years and ended in 241 BC with Rome winning. Carthage was forced to surrender Sicily and pay a massive war indemnity. Humiliating enough, right? But then, just a few years later, while Carthage was dealing with a brutal internal revolt from unpaid mercenaries, Rome swooped in and also took Sardinia and Corsica. No war, no real justification, just took them. That was the wound that never healed. Now enter the Barca family, the most powerful military dynasty in Carthage. Hamilcar Barca, Hannibal's father, was a brilliant general who fought Rome in the First Punic War. He never truly accepted defeat. After it ended, he took his army to Spain, essentially building a new Carthaginian empire there, rich in silver and manpower. The Roman historian Livy tells us that on the day Hamilcar left for Spain, his young son Hannibal begged to come along. Hamilcar agreed, but only after making him swear an oath on the altar. An oath of eternal hatred toward Rome. Whether that story is literally true or legend, it captures something real. Hannibal Barca grew up with one purpose. After Hamilcar died in battle and his son-in-law Hasdrubal took over, Hannibal eventually became commander of Carthaginian Spain at just 26 years old. Young, charismatic, beloved by his troops. And in 219 BC, he made his move. He attacked Saguntum, a city in Spain that had a treaty with Rome. Rome sent envoys to warn Carthage. Carthage ignored them. After an 8-month siege, Saguntum fell. Rome issued an ultimatum: hand over Hannibal or it's war. Carthage chose war. Here's where Hannibal makes the decision that will define his entire legacy, and honestly, one of the boldest military gambles in human history. Instead of waiting for Rome to come to him, or fighting in Spain or Africa, Hannibal decides to take the war directly to Italy, by land, through Gaul, over the Alps, in November. Let that sink in. His army, roughly 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants, marching from Spain, across southern France, and then up and over the Alps into northern Italy. Modern historians still debate exactly which pass he used. The leading candidates are the Col de Clapier or the Col de Mortseni, but the conditions were brutal regardless.
Mountain tribes attacked them. The paths crumbled under their feet. Men fell into ravines. Horses panicked. The elephants, already exhausted, struggled terribly. It took about 15 days to cross the Alps. And when they came out the other side? Fun fact, Hannibal started with roughly 90,000 soldiers in Spain. By the time he reached the Po Valley in northern Italy, he had approximately 20,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry left. He had lost 2/3 of his army just getting there. And yet, Rome was about to learn that what remained was more than enough. The Romans sent armies north to stop Hannibal immediately. What followed was one of the most devastating losing streaks in Roman military history. The Battle of Trebia River, 218 BC. Roman consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus marched his army out in the early morning across a freezing cold river without breakfast. On the other side, Hannibal's forces, warm, fed, and ready, were waiting. Hannibal had also hidden his brother Mago with a force of 2,000 cavalry in the reeds nearby. The Romans never saw it coming. Attacked from the front, then ambushed from behind. Catastrophic Roman loss. The Battle of Lake Trasimene, 217 BC. This one is almost too audacious to believe. Hannibal lured the Roman consul Gaius Flaminius into a narrow passage along Lake Trasimene in Etruria. Hidden in the hills on both sides, Hannibal's entire army. The Romans walked into a 16-kilometer-long ambush. The battle lasted about 3 hours. Roughly 15,000 Romans died, some in the fighting, some drowning in the lake as they tried to flee. Flaminius himself was killed. Rome was in shock. They appointed a dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus, to deal with the crisis. Fabius earned the nickname Cunctator, the delayer, because his strategy was simple. Do not fight Hannibal in the open field.
Bleed him slowly.
Harass his supply lines. Bleed him slowly. It was actually working, but the Roman people hated it. It felt cowardly, humiliating. They wanted revenge. So they replaced Fabius with 2 new consuls and raised the biggest army Rome had ever put in the field. It was the worst decision they ever made. August 2, 216 BC. The plains near the village of Cannae in southern Italy. Rome had assembled approximately 86,000 soldiers. Some estimates say up to 90,000, against Hannibal's roughly 50,000. The Romans held a massive numerical advantage, and they planned to use it. Their strategy? Pack the infantry into an incredibly dense formation in the center, smash through Hannibal's middle, win through sheer mass. Hannibal had a different idea. He deliberately placed his weakest troops, Gauls and Spanish infantry, in the center of his line, in a convex bulge pointing toward the Romans. His best African infantry held the flanks. His cavalry, stronger than Rome's, anchored both sides. When the battle started, the Roman mass pushed forward and hammered Hannibal's center, exactly as planned. The center began to bend, to give way. Harder, packing tighter together, chasing what looked like victory. But that was the trap. As the center bent inward, it became a crescent, curling around the Roman mass. Hannibal's flanks held firm. His cavalry destroyed the Roman horsemen on both sides and swung around behind the Roman infantry. The Romans were completely surrounded. What followed was a slaughter. In a single afternoon, perhaps 6 hours, between 50,000 and 70,000 Romans were killed. That is more than the U.S. lost on D-Day, Iwo Jima, and the Battle of the Bulge combined, in one afternoon, with swords and spears. Among the dead, 1 consul, 2 former consuls, 29 of 48 military tribunes, and 80 Roman senators. Cannae was not just a military defeat. It was an existential blow to Rome's identity.
And Hannibal's double envelopment, the pincer movement he used, is still studied in military academies around the world today. Generals from Napoleon to Norman Schwarzkopf have cited it. It is arguably the most analyzed single battle in history. This is the question everyone asks. After Cannae, Hannibal's cavalry commander, Marhable, reportedly said, "Come, let us follow the cavalry. I want you to dine on the capital in 5 days." Hannibal refused. And Marhable allegedly replied, "Hannibal, you know how to win a victory. You do not know how to use one."
Why didn't he march on Rome? Historians debate this endlessly, but the most likely reasons are, first, Hannibal lacked siege equipment. Rome was a heavily fortified city. Without siege engines, he couldn't breach the walls, and he'd be stuck outside a city of hundreds of thousands of hostile people. Second, his strategy was never to physically destroy Rome. It was to peel away Rome's Italian allies. He believed that after Cannae, the Italian cities would abandon Rome and join him. His real goal was to collapse Rome's alliance system and leave it isolated. Third, he needed reinforcements from Carthage. He sent his brother back to ask for more troops, elephants, and supplies. The reinforcements never came. This is often called Hannibal's greatest tragedy. The Carthaginian Senate, cautious, political, jealous of the Barca family's power, never committed fully to the Italian campaign. While Hannibal won battle after battle, he slowly bled out, with no reinforcements and no siege weapons. And Rome? Rome did something remarkable. It refused to break. After Cannae, several major Italian cities did defect to Hannibal, including Capua, the second largest city in Italy. Philip V of Macedon allied with Carthage. It looked like Hannibal's strategy was working. But Rome's core allies held, and Rome went back to the Fabian strategy, avoiding pitched battles, fighting on its own terms, slowly grinding Hannibal down. Year after year, Hannibal marched through Italy, winning skirmishes, trying to provoke a decisive battle. Rome refused to give him one. Meanwhile, a young Roman general was changing the entire shape of the war. His name was Publius Cornelius Scipio, later called Scipio Africanus. He had survived both Trebia and Cannae. He watched his father and uncle get killed fighting Carthaginians in Spain. And instead of losing faith, he studied Hannibal. He learned from him. In 211 BC, at just 25 years old, an age at which Roman law didn't even allow him to hold command, the Roman people voted to give him control of the Spanish campaign. He repaid their trust spectacularly. In 209 BC, Scipio launched a surprise attack on Carthago Nova, modern Cartagena, the Carthaginian capital of Spain. The city held Carthage's Spanish silver mines, their war chest, and thousands of Roman prisoners. Scipio took it in a single day. He then systematically dismantled Carthaginian power in Spain, defeating Hannibal's brothers Hasdrubal and Mago in a series of brilliant campaigns. By 206 BC, Carthage was finished in Spain. And Scipio had a plan. Scipio proposed something audacious. Take the war to Africa.
Attack Carthage itself. The Roman Senate was skeptical. Some, including the old Fabius Maximus, actively opposed it. Why risk everything on an invasion of Africa? But Scipio had a secret weapon. He had cultivated a relationship with Massinissa, a Numidian prince whose kingdom bordered Carthage. Massinissa commanded the finest cavalry in the ancient world, the very cavalry that had helped Hannibal win Trebia, Trasimene, and Cannae. In 204 BC, Scipio landed in North Africa. Carthage panicked and did the one thing they had refused to do for 15 years. They recalled Hannibal from Italy. After 15 years of marching, fighting, bleeding, Hannibal left Italy without ever being defeated in the field. He sailed home to Africa. It was the end of an era. October 202 BC, the plains near Zama, south of Carthage. Hannibal had 35,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry, and 80 war elephants.
Scipio had fewer infantry but dramatically superior cavalry, including Massiniss's Numidians. Hannibal tried every trick he knew. He lined up the elephants at the front, hoping to break the Roman lines before battle was even joined. Scipio's response? He arranged his infantry in lanes, gaps in the formation, so the elephants would charge through them harmlessly. He also had his musicians blow their instruments at full blast to frighten the elephants into turning back on Hannibal's own cavalry. On the flanks, Massiniss's horsemen smashed Hannibal's cavalry and drove them from the field.
For a time, the infantry battle was brutally even. Hannibal's veterans, some of the best soldiers in the ancient world, matched Rome's legions blow for blow. Then, Scipio's cavalry returned from pursuit. They hit Hannibal's infantry from behind. The same double envelopment Hannibal had used at Cannae turned against him. It was over. Roughly 20,000 Carthaginians died. Another 20,000 were captured. Hannibal escaped, but the war was finished. The peace terms were brutal. Carthage surrendered Spain, gave up their war fleet, and agreed to pay an enormous indemnity over 50 years. They were forbidden from making war without Rome's permission, effectively neutered as a power. Hannibal went on to become a politician in Carthage, actually reforming its government and reducing corruption. Rome kept demanding he be handed over. He fled into exile, advising various Eastern kings against Rome for years. He eventually died, likely by his own hand, from poison, around 183 BC, reportedly saying, "Let us relieve the Romans of their long anxiety, since they find it too long to wait for the death of an old man." Scipio Africanus was celebrated as Rome's greatest hero. Yet he too spent his later years fighting political enemies in Rome, died in exile, and allegedly requested that his tomb bear the inscription, "Ungrateful homeland, you shall not even have my bones." Both men, the greatest general of their age, and the man who beat him, ended their lives as outcasts. As for Carthage, it survived for another 50 years before Rome found a pretext to annihilate it completely in the Third Punic War. The city was burned, its people enslaved, the ground salted. But that is a story for another video. The Second Punic War changed the ancient world forever. It made Rome the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean. It produced two of history's greatest generals. And it gave us Cannae, a battle still taught in war colleges today, 2,200 years later. Hannibal never took Rome, but he came closer than anyone ever would again, until the barbarians arrived 6 centuries later. If you made it this far, genuinely thank you. This is the kind of history that deserves to be told at full length. If you want part 2 on the Third Punic War and the destruction of Carthage, smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.